Right folks, so it's Saturday morning, so I've come in to do a video on this engine. Here I have my apprentice with me, and we're going to strip this down and we're going to explain the different components of it. This is an engine out of a Peugeot Boxer van, which we replaced a couple of years ago. The customer wanted a brand new engine because it was 200,000 on it. It was a special vehicle, and they wanted a brand new engine in it, and we were left with this. This engine was overheating, something internal causing it inside. We never stripped it to see, we just replaced the engine as per the customer's request. We're going to strip it and explain the different components of it, so stay tuned. So the first component we're going to remove is the timing cover, and I'll explain the bits inside this and we'll go from there. Next one. So strip the timing covers off, and what you have in behind the timing covers on a car is this. So this is your camshaft, this is your tensioner, this is your water pump, and this is your crankshaft. And behind the crankshaft you'll have the oil pump, and this is your timing belt. And this timing belt, you can see Ford Moco, so it's actually a Ford engine, Ford belt, and I'm not sure who that one's made by. But the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the rocker cover, and I'll explain what's in them. So we've just removed the bolts out of this plastic rocker cover, which also acts as the breather for the engine, and we're going to remove it. Now, you see it's well stuck on there. Oh, there's two bolts, there's a bolt there still, Jamie, look. Good man. So we've removed this, we've loosened it, and that's what that looks like underneath. And this acts as a breather. There's a diaphragm in under that piece there, and so as the engine moves internally, that breathes in and out. Jamie, take that there please. So in here we have our camshaft, which is this here. You can see the lobes in the different positions. Got a picture there. They open and close the valves, and this here is a timing chain, so the two cams are in time with each other, which is driven off the timing belt. At the back of the engine you have this space here is for the fuel pump, and this space here is for the vacuum pump, and they just bolt onto the back. So on this side of the engine we have the inlet manifold, and it's incorporated into the head. We have obviously your dipstick, we have your engine oil cooler, engine oil filter, engine oil pressure switch. This is the engine oil control solenoid or pressure solenoid. This is an electric engine oil level sensor. So I'll start removing some of that stuff and show you. And obviously this is the engine oil filter. So you would have heard me talking about these oil pressure control solenoids. I've unbolted that, and these are one of the biggest killers of modern diesel. And what happens is, or diesel engines, what happens is you have oil pressure at one side of this, and this is a solenoid valve, and this opens proportionately to how much oil pressure the engine is allowed to develop. So this is a restriction, and it's controlled by the engine ECU to increase the oil pressure as the load comes up. But the problem is, as you can see on this, there's gauzes on these, and they block, and if you can see in there, you can see a build up of carbon, and that solenoid is so fine that once you start getting carbon build up, you're going to start getting sticking, and you're going to start getting reduced oil pressure at the wrong engine RPM, and that's killing a lot of modern diesels early. Very common in Volkswagen, Audi, say it's Skoda, all these Fords and that, but not a great design in my opinion. So I've just removed the oil filter and filter housing, and the way this works is the oil is pumped from the oil pump here in the sump, and it comes up through here, and it's pumped out through this central point into here, down into the filter, and it comes back into this gallery here, and then it's controlled back out and then pumped around the engine through this gallery here. And there's the solenoid in there. Let's see if I can just remove this now. So I've removed the solenoid back out of it, and this stops. This sits in there like that, and the oil comes in through the front part here, and then is controlled out of the solenoid. back out to the rest of the engine through this here. That's how that works. That's really important if you're doing if you have oil pressure problems in the car, that you remove these and have a look. You can set the ECU to full pressure as well, but if you set to full pressure and not getting full pressure, you need to replace this and then redo the test. There's no other way to do it. So we've just loosened all the bolts the whole way across, and now we're going to get a couple of levers in, like the here and here on the far side, just to split it off the cams, and I'll show you what it looks like under there. So what we have here is we have our two camshafts. This one here is the inlet camshaft, this is the exhaust, and what happens, the drive comes up from the crankshaft via the belt into this pulley here, and then these turn in time using that chain. I don't know if you can see that on the video, but we're going to remove these now as one unit, and we'll dive a bit deeper into it. So under the camshafts we have a couple of different bits and pieces going on. So what we have is this here is called a rocker arm, and what happens is as the camshaft turns, this lobe runs on this, there's a wheel in these, it runs on that wheel and it pushes down on that, and that's what opens the valve. So these actually just lift out, and that's what they look like there. Little wheel. But we often see on engines that aren't looked after, these wheels, the bearings collapsing them and stuff like that. And then as well inside, I don't know if I get it up here with a little pliers. So I have a pliers, I'm going to lift this hydraulic lifter up. That's a hydraulic lifter. Some people wouldn't know them as tappets, but these are hydraulically adjusted, so they actually fill up with oil, and the oil pressure takes the strain of the pressure of the cam going down, and it acts as a lever so the valve gets pressed. But sometimes when the time belts fail on these, what happens is it just break a load of rockers and new camshafts, new rockers, and you get away with that. So in this engine you have 16 valves, which means you have 16 rockers, 16 lifters, 2 camshafts, and this is where stuff gets expensive when you go fixing this stuff, because all that stuff has to be replaced, and it's all a few euros. Like a rocker could be ending from 7 or 8 to 20 or 30 or 40 quid, depending on the engine. And let's say there's 16 of them, 16 lifters, 16 valves. So that's where the expense comes in when you're starting to build this stuff. So we've removed all the valves in the rocker, or the rocker arms, and the hydraulic lifters. So this is what we're left with. Alright. Now this engine, if you think, was partially stripped when I started this video. So now we have, these are the valves here, valve cap springs, collets on top. So I'm actually going to remove the head now as one unit, which is held on with these 10 bolts, and we'll be into the top of the piston. So, like in true fixing style, we've removed most of the head bolts. But look at this, the heads are sheared off, 3 of them. So what I'll have to do is we'll have to weld the nut onto them and try to get them open like that. And that was with a bar, it wasn't with a gun or anything like that. But this will be typical in fixing stuff. There's no control over it. You put the pressure on, bolt has to open. Sometimes they open, sometimes they break. So I'll pick the rest of this up in another video in a couple of days. So cheers, have a good weekend. Hope this entertains you for a while. Cheers.